The next sutta is 5.21.210. Monks, there are these 5 disadvantages to one who, forgetful in mindfulness, not self-possessed, falls asleep. What 5? Badly he sleeps, badly he wakes, he sees evil visions, devas guard him not, and impurity is emitted. Verily, monks, these are the 5 disadvantages to one falling asleep, forgetful in mindfulness, not self-possessed. This sutta, the Buddha is saying that when one falls asleep, he is not mindful, not self-possessed. In the Vinaya of the monks, it is stated that you cannot say that an arahant, you cannot accuse an arahant of any offense, because an arahant is said to be mindful 24 hours a day. Now, if an arahant is mindful 24 hours a day, it either means that he doesn't sleep, or even when he is asleep, he is mindful. Now, there are some famous Indian yogis who claim that it is possible to develop the mind so well that it is possible to be mindful even when one is asleep. And from this sutta, it would appear that this is probably true, because here the Buddha is saying that one should not fall asleep unmindful, because when you do that, then you sleep badly, you wake up a bit tired, you have nightmares, and then devas would refuse to guard the monk, and impurity is emitted. So, because this is something that cannot be confirmed, but until a person attains that stage. But we can see, since an arahant is mindful 24 hours a day, a person striving to become an arahant should also strive to be mindful 24 hours a day. That's why one of the important practices in the spiritual path taught by the Buddha is devotion to wakefulness, devotion to vigilance. The Pali word is Jagariya Nuyoga. And there the Buddha is saying that we should strive to be mindful all the time. The next sutta is 5.22.211. Monks, that monk who abuses and reviles men that lead the holy life, who rails at Aryans, 5 disadvantages may be expected for him. What 5? Either he merits expulsion, a definite hindrance, or he commits a foul offense, or he is stricken by a grievous disease or illness, or he dies muddled in thought, and on the breaking up of the body after death he arises in the wayward way, the ill way, the abyss, hell. Monks, that monk who abuses and reviles men that lead the holy life, who rails at Aryans, these 5 advantages may be expected for him. And this sutta not only concerns monks who abuse Aryans, it also concerns lay persons who abuse Aryans. In one of the earlier suttas we read, chapter of the 4th, the Buddha said there are 4 fields of merit and 4 fields of demerit. One is the Buddha, the second one is disciples of the Buddha, probably meaning monks and nuns, and then mother and father. In other words, we should be very careful in our conduct towards these 4 kinds of persons. Now, it is very difficult to recognize an Arya because the Buddha said it takes a long time to know a person. So, concerning monks and nuns, we should be very careful Be very careful not to develop hatred towards any particular monk or nun. The next sutta is 5.22.213. The Buddha said, "Monks, there are these 5 disadvantages to one wanting in morals, failing in morals." What 5? Consider monks. The monk without morals, failing in morals, he comes to suffer much loss in wealth through neglect. This monks is the first disadvantage to one wanting in morals, failing in morals. Or an evil rumor spreads about him. This is a second disadvantage. Or whatever group he approach, whether nobles or Brahmins, householders or recluses, he does so without confidence and confused. This is the third disadvantage. Or he dies muddled in thought. This is the fourth disadvantage. Or on the breaking up of the body after death, he arises in the wayward way, the ill way, the abyss, hell. This is the fifth disadvantage. Verily, monks, these are the 5 disadvantages to one wanting in morals, failing in morals. So in this sutta, if a person fails to keep the precepts, 5 disadvantages follow. One is he suffers loss of wealth through neglect. Why? Because if a person breaks the precepts, for example, he takes to liquor, or he womanizes, or he gambles, and etc., then he comes to neglect his duties, so he suffers loss of wealth. The second one, he gets a bad reputation. People say this guy, he's hunter, kills animals, or he lies, or he cheats, or he steals others' property, or he seduces another's husband or wife, or he's a drunkard, etc. So he gets a bad reputation. The third one, because he does not keep the precepts, he does not have the confidence, he does things he has to be ashamed of. So whenever he approaches a company of people, he approaches them without confidence. The fourth one is, here it says he dies muddled in thought. There are 2 aspects here. One is when a person grows old, if he does not keep the precepts, a lot of remorse arises. And because of remorse, that person becomes mentally disturbed. So that person, it is seen that people who do not keep the precepts are liable to become senile at a younger age. Sometimes some people in their 50s, they become senile, talk a lot of nonsense because they have a lot of remorse, their heart is disturbed. Another aspect is when a person is about to pass away, if the person does not keep the precepts, then he's afraid to die. So when the dying moment comes, that person is very scared because there is no blessings, no merit to support that person. The last one is after death he arises in the woeful plains. These are the disadvantages. The next sutta, 5.23.223. Monks, there are these 5 disadvantages from staying too long in a place. What 5? Many belongings and their amassing, much medicine and its amassing, many duties and things to be done and their concern. One lives with householders and wanderers, mixing with them, not averse from laymen's company. When one leaves that place, one leaves it with regret. Monks, these are the 5 disadvantages from staying too long in a place. That's the end of the sutta. During the Buddha's time, we find that there were many monasteries under the Buddha, and they were more like forest monasteries, usually out of town. And monks would stay in a monastery, and after some time they would move to another monastery and take up residence there, and after some time they move again to another monastery. And that seemed to be the lifestyle during the Buddha's time. Of course, before the monasteries were formed, monks used to live in caves and up the hills, in the valleys, under trees, etc. But later, the Buddha allowed the formation of monasteries, so that monks used to found it more convenient to stay in monasteries because they had all the support there. And they would stay in the monasteries and then after that move from monastery to monastery. The exceptions were those monks who had duties like the abbot, the assistant abbot, sometimes the monk in charge of the store, or a monk in charge of the kutis, the huts for monks. In other words, he would be the one who would assign monks to the kutis, and other officers of the Sangha who had responsibilities. And some of these, because of their responsibilities, they did not move from monastery to monastery. And those monks who did not have responsibilities, especially the younger monks, they would move, and they were encouraged to not to stay too long in a place because of these disadvantages. The next sutta is 5.23.226. Monks, there are these 5 disadvantages to a monk who visits families and lives in their company too much. What 5? He often sees women folk. From seeing them, companionship comes. From companionship, intimacy. From intimacy, amorousness. When the heart is inflamed, this may be expected. Either joyless he will live the holy life, or he will commit some foul offense, or he will give up the training and return to the lower life. Verily, monks, these are the 5 disadvantages to a monk who visits families and lives in their company too much. So this sutta is concerned with monks, and monks are not supposed to associate too much with lay people, especially those of the opposite sex. Otherwise, he will live the holy life without joy, or he will commit some foul offense, or he will return to the lay life. And also, lay people also should not try to be too close to monks, should not be too intimate with monks, because it's not good for the monk. So if lay people know these suttas, these teachings of the Buddha, then they would not associate too much with monks. The next sutta is 5.24.234. Monks, if a monk in residence follow the course of 5 things, he becomes of great service to his residence. What 5? He is virtuous. He is much learned. He repairs things broken and dilapidated. And when many monks of the Sangha have come, monks from various parts of the country, he speaks to the householders who approach, saying, "See, good sirs, many monks from various parts of the country have arrived. Do good, now's the time to make merit." And he attains to the 4 states of jhana. Verily, monks, if a monk in residence follow the course of 5 things, he becomes of great service to his residence. This sutta is about a monk who is very useful, who is a useful monk to have in a monastery, one who is virtuous, one who is much learned in the Dhamma Vinaya, one who helps to repair the kutis, the huts, and anything broken and dilapidated, old. And also when many monks arrive, then he encourages the lay people to support them. And the last one, he can attain to the jhanas, so that he is not the one who is scatterbrained. The next sutta is 5.24.235. Monks, if a monk in residence follow the course of 5 things, he takes pity on householders. What 5? He incites them to greater virtue. He makes them live in the mirror of Dhamma. When visiting the sick, he stirs up mindfulness, saying, "Let the Venerable Ones set up mindfulness, that thing most worthwhile." When many monks of the Sangha have come, he urges the householders to do good. And when they give him food, whether mean or choice, he enjoys it and does not frustrate the gift of faith. Verily, monks, such a monk takes pity on householders. So this monk is very good to householders, lay people. If he incites them to practice the precepts, and then he incites them to live according to Dhamma, and when he visits the other sick monks, he encourages them to stir up mindfulness. And when many monks arrive, he encourages householders to support them. And whatever food or other requisite he receives, he enjoys it, does not frustrate the gift of faith. That means he does not either refuse to receive or waste it by throwing it away or something. The next sutta is 5.25.250. Monks, there are these 5 disadvantages of devotion to one monk. What 5? Monks, when a person becomes very devoted to a monk, and that monk falls into an error such that the Sangha suspend him, then he will think, the Sangha has suspended him who is dear and lovely to me, and he will be no more full of devotion for the monks. And from being without that devotion, he will not follow other monks. And from not following other monks, he will not hear Sat Dhamma, true Dhamma. And from not hearing Sat Dhamma, he will fall away from Sat Dhamma. This, monks, is the first disadvantage of devotion to one monk. Or that monk falls into an error such that the Sangha make him sit on the outskirts of a Sangha gathering, and the person similarly loses devotion to the Sangha. Or when a person becomes very devoted to a monk, and that monk has gone to a distant place, and he loses devotion to the Sangha. Or the monk wanders in mind, means becomes mentally disturbed. Or the monk is dead, then he will think, he is dead who was dear and lovely to me, and he will not follow other monks, and from not following other monks, he will not hear the true Dhamma, and from not hearing the true Dhamma, he will fall away from the true Dhamma. This, monks, is the 5th disadvantage of devotion to one monk. Verily, monks, these are the 5 disadvantages of devotion to one monk. That's the end of the sutta. I think you all have mentioned before, our teacher, the Buddha said, is the Dhammavinaya. There are some people, sometimes they hero worship a monk, and that is not good. That becomes like a personality cult. And when people become too devoted to that monk, and for some reason that monk falls, either is demoted, or he disrobes, or he passes away, or he goes mad or something, or he leaves and goes to some distant place, then those devotees would not give the same respect to other monks. I think you all remember the last few years we had some famous monk who was accused of some foul offense, and after that, because a lot of people hero worshipped him, because of that they lost faith in the Sangha, and some of them refused to come to the monastery after that. And that is from not listening to a sutta like this. That's why these suttas are very good. They teach us a lot of things. The next sutta is 5.26.254. Monks, there are these 5 forms of stinginess. What 5? Stinginess as to one's lodging, stinginess as to one's family, stinginess as to gains, stinginess as to fame, and stinginess as to Dhamma. Verily, monks, these are the 5. Now the meanness of these 5 monks is this: stinginess as to Dhamma. That's the end of the sutta. Yeah, there are certain things that we are stingy about, and because we are attached to it. One's lodging, family, gains, fame. And the last one is Dhamma. The meanness is the stinginess of Dhamma, and this is because Dhamma is of the greatest value of all those things mentioned. The greatest value is the Dhamma. But even though the Buddha said one should not be stingy concerning Dhamma, yet in the Vinaya the Buddha said if people who come to learn the Dhamma, they do not show enough respect for the Dhamma, then the monks are not allowed to teach them the Dhamma. For example, they come and ask Dhamma, and they sit higher than a monk, or they wear the hat, or they don't take off the shoe, or they are holding a weapon or something. Then the monk is not allowed to teach the Dhamma to such people. And we can see also during the Buddha's time, sometimes people came to the Buddha and they did not ask for a Dhamma teaching, and so sometimes the Buddha also would not teach them. And sometimes they asked and the Buddha would just answer exactly only to the point what they asked and did not speak further. So normally the person has to be gauged whether that person has the interest to listen to the Dhamma or not.